Okay, hi. Making sure everyone can hear me. Okay, good. Yeah, so I've given a version of this talk earlier this month, but I've decided to cut it short and pretty much in half, and going straight to the security parts of how artificial intelligence is applied in security and how attackers can use it, because it's more interesting. So it's going to be like with an assumption that you already know about artificial intelligence and machine learning, kind of basic stuff. So I've got those two parts of the agenda, and I'm going straight to how AI can be used in offense, how it can be used and already is used in defense, and also what kind of future can we expect with AI and security, and whether it's actually something that we can merge. And kind of demonstrate an approach to how I would design an intelligence security solution, and maybe kind of give ideas for some future work, for some research, spark something maybe in someone. And I most definitely won't have enough time for things, so I'll be rushing it through the end. Please forgive me. I hope the slides will be available in the end. Okay, so for one, we can do really amazing things with AI. It sometimes almost seems like magic, but equally, if we can make AI solve our problems, malicious actors can also use AI. And if AI already outperforms humans in many mundane tasks, it could also be tasked with malicious activity, couldn't it? And imagine what it could do. It could be very, very efficient. There's like minimal human error. So in these kind of non-cognitively heavy tasks, AI and in particular machine learning, which is what I'm mostly going to be speaking about today, it's going to be much better than your typical human hacker, who will also need to go to sleep at some point, which is something that AI doesn't need to do. And intelligent systems, they will be in charge of very important aspects of our lives. They already are. They're going to be running power plants, our infrastructure, government facilities, medical facilities. So the impact of malicious AI could also be kind of critical, because it can be either something that is designed from the start to be malicious, or something that is corrupted during runtime when it's actually in operation. And there are many techniques to do that. To top it all off, machine ethics is something that's only kind of a very new concept, and it's got many challenges because it's hard to define ethics and morals and implement those in a way that a machine would comply with. Think Asimov's 3 laws. It was just 3 laws, and they didn't do very well, because machines are kind of good at finding loopholes because they do exactly what they're told, and sometimes that isn't how we think about things. So, and most of all, humans aren't very ethical themselves, so we can't really handle how humans do ethics most of the time, and machines mimic human behavior and cognition, so make your own conclusions there. We may not even be able to imagine what AI could do. So, for example, ex-President Obama expressed the concern that machine learning could be used to teach some kind of a solution or a technology to obtain nuclear launch codes, and figure out how to do that with something like reinforcement learning that wouldn't even take long. So it's something very real, as well as spawning kind of maybe irrational fears sometimes. Not all of them are complete science fiction. Furthermore, even when we use AI for defense, we could be creating additional attack vectors. Because AI-enabled solutions are typically very complex systems, and a complex system will always fail. It's pretty much inevitable. And the more responsibility we place on such a solution, the more dire the consequences of a failure will be. Testing and debugging these kind of solutions is very, very challenging. In fact, it's outlined as one of the main challenges of machine learning specifically, is that we don't entirely understand how it works. So we can't make sure that it's going to be making the right decisions for the right reasons continuously. And mistakes are maybe acceptable when it's your virtual assistant, but if it's a security solution that's designed to prevent a breach, well, we are all pretty much aware how much a breach costs nowadays, and it's not something you just want to miss. It's the same thing with monitoring why and how exactly certain solutions, certain decisions were made by machine learning algorithms and other AI solutions, because it's very black box to us. So we can't really be very confident in things where we can't detect issues in workflow or data, because they usually provide some kind of reasoning as to why they made a certain decision, but you can't see if a flaw lies deeper inside. You can't use typical software testing approaches here. Furthermore, you can intentionally attack AI security solutions with other AI. I know this is getting a bit like on the deep end, but still, hackers can use machine learning to defeat machine learning. There are many, many ways to do so. They can learn about your model, or if the model is known, they can mislead it intentionally and force the model to learn a specific attack or generate specific things that will bypass that model. So for example, there's Metasploit modules that you can generate to fool machine learning algorithms designed to detect malware or intrusions, well, mostly malware and spam and phishing and things like that. But there's room for further developments in this kind of line of work. You can use blind spots in known models. Every model has one. And the thing here is that you can copy a machine learning model and use it offline to learn to defeat it as well. It's kind of like offline password cracking. You have unlimited time and resources to figure out how to bypass a certain algorithm. So again, things like spam filters and malware detection can be not quite as effective as you would expect them to be. Even if you don't know what the model is, you can probe it and use whatever output it's producing to try and design a sample that will bypass it. And there's machine learning algorithms to generate certain perturbation patterns that will change, for example, malware files into something that looks completely different but preserves the malware functionality of that file. This has been demonstrated specifically on Windows PE files, but it can be expanded to anything, really. Yeah, there's chaff attacks where you can just confuse the model with a lot of noise as well. Or do it really slowly, kind of expanding the decision boundary of the model. So whoever owns the model wouldn't even necessarily notice that something is amiss. It's currently already used by attackers to generate better malware that can evade malware filters, malware that can learn and adapt in different environments, as well as automating different hacking tasks that typically required a lot of time, like information gathering. That can be done very quickly and in a more intelligent way nowadays, saving the hackers a lot of time. A lot of tasks can be automated to reduce human error and things like that. And quite commonly, this kind of technique is used in targeted phishing attacks, because we can now use machine learning to figure out what samples are best and generate more clicks and make phishing emails that are targeted, but to many, many different users. You're not just like targeting one user now, you're targeting many. Obviously, you can also just scan the internet in a smarter way to find vulnerabilities in code, in applications, in software versions, and just come up with so many more things than you used to before. And again, not so many of them will be false positives. You will come across actual real vulnerabilities. Even the most recent DARPA Cyber Grand Challenge had the main task of finding vulnerabilities in code and actually exploiting them and defending against them. So it's quite a lot we can already do with AI in terms of attacking different things. And defenders, our current security specialists, aren't really trained to deal with this. And our security solutions, most of all, are not trained to deal with this and to withstand different types of attacks. There are many examples of tools. A lot of them are kind of open source. Some of them are on prototype level. But these are all very interesting examples. I found that it's very interesting to look at conferences to find kind of the newest developments in these types of areas. For example, the Markov obfuscate tool is used to uses Markov chains and the concept of memory in reinforcement learning to kind of learn the best patterns to mutate malicious files. Actually, no, not malicious files, but just general data for exfiltration from networks. So you can easily sneak out a lot of data without splitting it into tiny chunks or encrypting it, because encrypted data can commonly be dropped by firewalls and IDS when you're trying to exfiltrate it from a network. So attackers can use it that way. And there's a lot of future ideas as well. For example, intelligent web app fuzzing is something that can be done, or even password brute forcing if done in a more intelligent way. It's not going to take such a long time because you're going to have some kind of surrounding context knowledge of what character should come next based on typical passwords. You're kind of combining a dictionary, a guessing attack, and a brute force attack, making it just so much more efficient and so much quicker. Obviously, our threats are evolving and we need to respond accordingly, but the good news is that everything the attackers can use, we can also use. There are quite a lot of problems in InfoSec that could be solved with artificial intelligence and machine learning specifically, and it's already actively being done. So, for example, machine learning is very great at handling great volumes of data and doing it quickly and accurately, and correlating data across a wide spectrum of different sources and logs, which is very difficult for a human analyst to do. There's also a lot of features that AI can focus on at the same time. Again, difficult for a human to keep so many parameters in mind. And also our growing need for real-time response to security threats and really low fault tolerance, because it only takes one kind of vulnerability, one exploit to get through to cause a breach. And breaches are expensive, as I've already mentioned, and difficult to deal with. So AI offers all these useful capabilities, like optimizing resources. There's even functions for optimizing other functions, which I find amazing. So for example, PCA, Principal Component Analysis, can be used to do your feature design for machine learning a lot more efficiently and quickly by selecting all the good features. And there's similar algorithms like VA, SVM, and all those. I won't go into that much detail at the moment because I know I'm short on time. And it can deal with all of this quickly changing stuff, and network topologies that are changing. Like, think of it, we've got like grid computing, cloud, Internet of Things, mobile networks. All of it means that our topology just doesn't stay put. Our networks are very, very flexible and changing, and AI can deal with that. We can also provide some kind of feedback to our solutions, whether they're doing the right thing or not, and kind of tune and adjust them seamlessly. And I think the main benefit, one of the main benefits, in my opinion, is that we can provide a lot of context in alerts in things like anomaly detection and malware analysis. We don't just give you a random alert like this looks suspicious. We can give you a lot of data to surround it and help you remediate it quicker. And so your analysts aren't actually busy maintaining difficult rules and correlating data from different logs, and they can invest into investigating actual issues and doing some kind of innovative work, which I think security specialists should be tasked with instead of all this tedious manual labor. There's a lot of AI kind of movement in security that we've seen for quite a while now, like since the 90s. It all starts with automation and things like that, and kind of add-ons for different existing tools. There's browser add-ons for determining malicious URLs, and all of this is getting smarter. Even like classic security tools like CMs and identity access management, data loss prevention can be augmented by things like user behavior analysis. So this is something called smart analytics that's being applied to all these common conventional kind of security solutions that improves the efficiency and the results that you're getting. And this is already being done, but it can't really replace them at the moment, because it's kind of the conventional solutions really complement these AI-themed improvements and smart analytics. The smart analytics need a base to operate on. This is why we still need those normal, commonplace solutions. And there's also a lot more examples actually that I was able to find of what we're doing in terms of protecting our networks. Most of these will be IDS solutions, anomaly detection and malware prevention and things like that. Some of these are more interesting that I would like to point out. For example, things like Puma is a plugin that uses machine learning to extract permissions from Android applications and determine whether it's a malicious application or not based on that. So there's even developments in the mobile sphere. Deep Instinct can search the darknet forums for zero-day vulnerabilities on sale, which is also something that takes human analysts a lot of time. But is really quick and easy for AI. And it was reported to have found 16 zero days in just 4 weeks. And if we can find them before we can make them before they're made into exploits, then that means we can patch them before they actually get used against well, companies and individuals. Other things are these amazing models, and prototypes are always kind of more impressive than something that's already there and functioning, but still. We can detect malicious websites, CNC communications, and we've got a lot of genetic algorithms coming in which try to mimic human biology and how they approach dealing with these kind of threats. For example, one is to deal with analyzing malware communication protocols and finding DGA-based malware and grouping it into malware families by analyzing similarity. And it does it purely like on the non-existent domains this malware generates, which isn't a lot of information, but you can use very few features as well to determine patterns and use this kind of thing. Self-organizing maps have been proven great for determining malicious intent, because you can organize a lot of information for later analysis, and it can be used in for example, it's been shown to fight things like cyber terrorism and malicious intentions, again, on these darknet forums. Neuroendocrine immune systems are also a great thing, because they can orchestrate different security solutions, including AI-enabled ones and conventional ones. Things like that, even though it's a prototype, have been implemented in e-government systems, which shows that it's something that works and can be used in real life as well. There's numerous examples of this, mostly in anomaly detection and malware analysis, and sometimes even in intrusion prevention. So you may have heard of Darktrace, which is a UK-based company that does immune system-like anomaly detection and now prevention. So in the past year, they've developed something called Antigena, that also fights intrusions and tries to stop them, which is great. If you've got something like ransomware, like crypto lockers, then your speed of response is crucial. It can mean whether it can make the difference between you saving your network or, you know, not losing all of your data if it's not backed up. Yeah, so these bio-inspired algorithms is something that's really coming forward. But if there are so many solutions and prototypes and models, and all of it has been shown to work and have great precision, why are these not more widely adopted? Why are we not seeing these amazing results? And the security issues that we had pre-AI are still basically our issues, right? Well, there are many problems with AI and with security. Mainly accuracy and reliability is still something that's not quite there yet for AI. It's still learning to deal with ambiguous data. There's still this testing issue. It may miss one-off occurrences and atypical attacks. It can't find new attacks. And the same data sets are used to train different security models and to test them as well. So we can't be quite sure that something that works for our test data and validation data, that it will also work for real-life data. So we can't just trust AI just yet. And quite often, testing an AI solution can be more difficult than building the model itself. It's like building some kind of tests for it. And it still requires human supervision and appropriately skilled specialists, which is something a lot of organizations don't really recognize. They pick these super solutions for themselves and then fire their security department or something, and there's no one left to actually fine-tune this model and watch its decision boundaries and kind of retrain it every once in a while. And there is a lack of skilled specialists even who would be able to do this. And then there's always the cost of these kind of solutions. Like most of them, the ones that work are commercial and aren't cheap, really aren't cheap. And we've quite often haven't got the budget to spend on security and to do this. Some predictions, again, in short, the consensus is that AI will continue to grow into computer security. However, it won't be quite so effective. As you can see in the last kind of quote, is that sophisticated criminals will be able to beat sophisticated security solutions. But I like to stay optimistic on this and see the potential solutions to the many problems that security and AI have got in common. So for example, well, we don't have enough attack-free data. We could generate it by simulations. We have honeypots to get kind of data for our attack data, real attack data. we could use similar approaches to generate attack-free data. So create a sandbox that's not actually accessible to attackers, and simulate normal human activity inside that sandbox. It's not going to be as good as live data, but it can make your training data cleaner. A lot of context is required in security. We know this. The data is not straightforward. It's very ambiguous. It's very fast-changing and dynamic, and not something that AI deals with excellently at the moment. There's room for improvement. We can definitely develop larger knowledge bases. So aside from actually having these amazing security solutions, we need to focus on kind of gathering up everything we already know about security in a meaningful way that will make sense to machines, and actually build it into a solid knowledge base to provide context to our security solutions. And there's always things like proactive search algorithms that are commonly used to provide context for smart assistants and smart calendars and your smart everything in your smartphones. It can be the same kind of approach can be transferred to the security domain and use these kind of knowledge bases to provide the necessary context to our AI solutions. This is again something that will help with the steep learning curve, because our reinforcement learning algorithms, they pretty much begin from zero. If you've seen an AI algorithm trying to learn to play a game, you've seen it do stupid things at first, like, I don't know, shooting itself or just walking straight off a cliff or something. This is how it works at the moment, but if we've got this context, it won't have to start from zero. It can learn new things with some kind of background knowledge already on them, which I think is something that we should strive to do. And there's solutions like expert systems that thrive on knowledge bases and use machine learning to expand these knowledge bases. So that's one thing that again, would be very useful in solving many of these problems. We're increasing our attack space, as I've already mentioned. There's many attacks, but there's also many resistant algorithms, or algorithms that are being improved to be more resistant to attacks. Like there's a principal component analysis for feature extraction, and there's been developments to show that it can be trained to resist certain types of attacks, like chaff, that I've already mentioned. And you can always attack your own model, do pen testing against your own security solutions. It's definitely worthwhile because it will help you learn your model's blind spots and secure them. And don't make your model accessible to just everyone. It shouldn't be possible to probe your IDS for different things, and you need to monitor its decision boundaries, whether or not you need to adjust them. If it's getting too wide, if it's accepting too many things that may be actually anomalies or intrusions, then you need to modify it, you need to retrain it. And something I've also learned about in situ learning is a really great approach to making your malware detection and virus detection better against attacks by feeding your model the incorrectly labeled data. So stuff that it's missed before, after being reviewed by a human specialist, it goes, okay, you've mislabeled this, this, and that, and you feed it back as training data to the same model, which changes the model, and it means you've got a different model every time, and it's also customized to your specific domain, which is great because it's been shown that this technique actually helps improve detection, and there are much fewer variants of malware and viruses that bypass this kind of thing. And again, yeah, there are more things we can do. For example, in this questionable accuracy thing, we can definitely focus more on solving narrow tasks. Don't try to make an AI solution that just does everything. Solve this one little problem and then use another solution to solve a different problem. And use something like an endocrine immune system to orchestrate these different things. Use different mobile intelligent agents to collect data from different areas of your network. and just put specific tasks on specific objects and choose the right tools to do these tasks. There's always paperwork and regulations issues, which I don't know how to solve, but there's very many smart people who know their legal stuff and their rules. And I think they can probably come up with solutions of how to manage the fact that your data is crossing boundaries and that you need to transfer it from site to site to actually optimize this kind of multi-solution setup and cooperation between different security tools. And the expert skill gap, of course, we need to train our security specialists to be better at machine learning, to be at least aware of machine learning. But in ideal world, we would want pen testers that can pen test machine learning solutions and make them better that way. There's things that can be designed. So this is like my motivation basically is to create an analysis engine that will help sift through things like IBM App Scan results and HP Fortify Web Inspect, what have you, automated scan results and reduce the false positives, because at the moment it's really dreadful. And why exactly this is because, yes, there is many false positives. It's something that's necessary in this domain. The existing solutions like IBM's Intelligent Findings Analytics are limited. So this one, for example, is only applicable to static code analysis, while I would want something that's applicable to web application analysis, for example. It's kind of more attack resistant as well, because it's usually an internal solution that scans something and it's not accessible to outside attackers to probe. And again, it's higher error tolerance. You're not so concerned about false positives and false negatives, although they are the main annoying factor that is motivating to solve this issue. And again, it's an interesting solution to design because it requires a multi-level approach, different kinds of technologies, not just AI. And it needs this kind of more context, so it will require cooperation between different security solutions and a good, strong knowledge base. That is something I can't believe we don't have yet, really. Yeah, so that's for the motivation, in case you're still wondering. This is what the typical results of an automated vulnerability scanner look like. And the executive summary, like no one on the executive level is going to look through this. No one is going to pay attention to this. It's not motivating for them to actually do something about it and then solve these issues when there's so many. It's just something they're going to put into a box and delegate this. So next year when you do the same scan, you're likely to find all the same issues because nothing has been done about them. So by only focusing on the real issues and giving them the real issues, we have a chance to actually make people try and want to solve something and work with their limited budget. And the approach that I propose is kind of really understanding the problem from everything I've learned and everything I've been talking about so far. This kind of emerges is where you really need to understand your problem. You need to define your features based on this problem, which is your dimensions for your machine learning algorithm, and acquire really good, clean data and really prepare this data. This is where you need to spend most of your time, really, on the design. And you need really skilled specialists. You need both data analysts and security specialists to do this. And as long as you're aware, you can come up with a really, really good design for this. Then you go into the labeling phase where you decide whether something is a vulnerability or not, which is where you need known attack types and patterns. You need behavioral data from the rest of your kind of network and application and your user behavior, So you add context by this kind of knowledge base, proactive search, and other things I've mentioned. Then you go into the clustering phase where you group together the similar kind of issues and group them into vulnerability types. Again, you need your knowledge base here, and you need to have these really good features, because this will be heavily based on features that you've extracted and used to train your model. Potentially, you can use a separate layer. If you're going for the deep neural networks approach, you can use a separate layer for each type of vulnerability, for each kind of feature that relates to that vulnerability, and to extract like this and that feature, and a combination of different features can be a different kind of vulnerability in the end. So yeah, it's a complex solution, but I think this is kind of an approach that will help us get to the bottom of it. And finally, you evaluate the exploitability of an issue, and this is the most interesting part, where you can actually try and make your solution exploit these issues to verify that, yeah, this is not a false positive, I can exploit this, this is a real issue. So I think that would be something really valuable in this domain. And you can use machine learning to match a vulnerability with an appropriate exploitation technique. It's kind of like a type of labeling if you think about it. And then you can use this kind of deep reinforcement learning with backpropagation to teach it to exploit this kind of vulnerability. And one of the tools I presented earlier, called DeepHack, actually has the capability already to do this. It's something like 200 lines of Python, and it can come across a completely new vulnerability, a completely new issue without any background knowledge in security or hacking, and learn to exploit this issue from zero knowledge. So I think something like that can be used as a base for this type of functionality. And that's one of the other things, is that you have things that you can use as a base already, and build upon that to make these solutions better and stronger, as long as you've got your clearly identified goals and what you're going to reward this reinforcement learning with. And the best thing is that we can learn something new, because machine learning, again, can cover things that we haven't thought of or aren't capable of thinking of. It covers entire solution spaces that humans really can't go into. Therefore, we may learn new attack techniques. We may learn new vulnerability types, even though it's said that machine learning can detect new vulnerability types. There's ways, I believe there's ways to do that, because a lot of solutions have been shown to detect new malware or new exploitation types. So I don't think it's that far off. With enough development, this should be possible. And to conclude, many say that machine learning is not good for security and not applicable to security. I think that we just shouldn't blindly use machine learning absolutely everywhere because it's such a buzzword and hype. I think we should, as our software and technologies are getting smarter, we should get smarter about what we're doing. We should understand the problems that require machine learning solutions and use it where it's applicable, and we should choose the right tools for the task. So essentially, the approach is focus on narrow problems, create a solid, good knowledge base of what we already know about security for feature extraction and analysis, learn to generate and acquire meaningful data where you can extract these features from so that you can train and validate your model, and don't just use machine learning, use other solutions as well. Use other AI things, because machine learning isn't all that AI is about. There's smarter analytics, there's natural language processing, there's data mining, all of these things that you can use to make machine learning better and to actually apply it meaningfully. Obviously, it requires a lot of money and a lot of expert skill, which is why we need to teach our security experts to be also artificial intelligence experts. Yes, this is it in a rush from me. I don't believe there's any time for questions, but if you have them, feel free to contact me. It's my name, surname, @accenture.com, or this email address. So yeah, just feel free to contact me or find me in a break or anything. Thank you very much for listening to me. I know it's been long. I'm sorry. I hope you enjoyed at least some of this. Thank you.